Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mentor-in-Law webinar series. We're really excited to have you guys here. Today's topic, as you all know, is I got an LLM, now what? And here we have our esteemed panelists to discuss their career paths, as well as tips and tricks that they'd recommend for people that are currently in their LLM programs or thinking about getting their LLM programs. By way of introduction, my name is Nyssa. I am an attorney at Microsoft, as well as the founder of Mentor-in-Law. I am co-hosting today's event with Ali, who I will now pass on to introduce himself, and then also the panelists.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nyssa. Hi, everyone. My name is Ali Assareh. I work at the Clorox company. I'm in-house counsel. Prior to that, I was at a couple of different firms. And prior to that, I just saw among the attendees, shout out Mr. Neil Kripalani, one of my mentors in life. I used to work for him before law school, so thank you for joining. We're super excited to have our awesome panelists here. I know all of them, and they're super accomplished and also thoughtful people. So I hope that we get to talk about some real life lessons, regardless of jobs and LLM, on their insights about life. So with that note, let's get us started. I will ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and I'll ask them to do it in the following order. If Elham, you can go first, then Michael, then Elizabeth, then Clara, and then we can get started.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'm Elham Sadri. I graduated from LLM 2012 from Penn State School of Law in State College, Pennsylvania. And I was dealing with a lot of LLM issues. After that, I started my practice 4 years ago actually, and I just started my own solo practice immigration only in California a few months ago in middle of pandemic. I work in a couple of firms in San Francisco and San Jose before I start my own firm, and I'm member of Iranian American, I was member of Iranian American Bar Association board last year with Ali actually, and this year we started working another project together, and now I've been board member with American Immigration Lawyer Association in different chapter in Santa Clara Valley chapter and Northern California chapter. And I'm so excited to be here. I was, another thing, I think part of the introduction I was supposed to say, I forgot. I was the first Iranian LLM student in the school that I studied LLM actually. And after that, we started having more diversity to bring more students. As part of that project, I published a book in Farsi in Iran about what introduction to LLM and how study LLM in the United States would look like, what's the difference and what people need to know to start LLM program here. And I think that's it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Elham. Yeah, hi, my name is Michael Kunz. I am born and raised in Switzerland. And I did my LLM in 2016 in intellectual property law and policy at the University of Washington in Seattle. Now I am back in Switzerland. I'm working as a senior legal associate at a Swiss law firm, where I'm primarily focused on blockchain technology. So basically blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, financial market related questions. Mostly, and then on the other hand, we do a lot of data privacy policy questions, focused primarily on the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation in the European Union. And I did take the bar exam in the United States after the LLM in 2016. So I'm also a licensed attorney in Washington State. And I did work 1 year after I finished the LLM. And yeah, and I think one of the questions that was also here in the introduction list, last country I visited, that was Austria. I visited my family, some half Austrian. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Hassan. I'm Nigerian. I currently live and work in Vienna with the OPEC Fund for International Development. Before that, I was based in Washington, D.C., where I was working with the World Bank. I did my LLM in NYU, where I met Ali and Clara. and my specialization was international legal studies. Currently, since the LLM, I've basically been in the international finance and development world. So I've specialized in sovereign loans and sovereign debts, and recently I've been more into policy and governance issues. So I'm currently managing the ongoing governance reform in the institution. I also sit on the board of the Association of Lawyers in Intergovernmental Finance and Development Institutions, and also on its editorial board. I'm very excited to be on this panel. Thank you, Nyssa and Ali, for organizing. And thank you to all the participants for your interest in it. And I will certainly be very happy to share my tips with you as you more or less kickstart your careers. I love traveling. So you can imagine what COVID-19 is doing to me. Regardless, I managed to get some vacation in Greece recently. So that's the last country I visited. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'll close out the introductions. My name is Clara Solomon, and I'm Director of Counseling and Career Development in the Career Services Office at NYU School of Law. I am not actually an LLM graduate myself, but I have been the primary career advisor for NYU's 350 foreign trained LLMs annually for the past 15 years. So that means I've had the opportunity to meet literally thousands of people in your shoes and with your interests, and work with really talented people like all of you. And I remember working with Elizabeth very well. And I've seen a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different searches. And I think I have a lot of success stories to tell and a lot of tips. In terms of travel, I mean, it's been a while because of COVID, but Bermuda was the last country I have been to, not that far from New York, but it was a beautiful place and I'd like to get back soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for the introductions. So let's get started. I'll start with the very easy question. And what are some things you wish you knew about your LLM journey in advance and that you think would be helpful for current LLMs to know now? Let's start with Michael, since you're in the top corner of my screen.
Well, thank you. Well, you say it's an easy question. I'm not sure if that's the easiest one, but I guess for me, the thing that was something that I didn't expect that I learned when I was in the States, it's mainly a cultural difference, is how important networking really is, and how important it is to reach out to other people and to really build a network, because depending where you're from, I can only speak for Switzerland, a network is still valuable to have it here, but things work very differently. If you want to get a job in Switzerland, usually you just, you send out your resume, very old school style, and you actually have pretty good chances to be considered. And what I realized in the United States is that it's really, really helpful to know people who have valuable connections and to really keep growing that network. So I would really say that that's something that you should keep an eye on.
Does anyone else have something to add?
Right, yeah, I'll jump in here. So Michael definitely set the pace by saying networking is key. I totally agree with that. I think my intervention would be more in terms of giving you a few ideas on how to go about networking from my experience. I found that it's really important to get to know people before you need them. So when we got into law school, we had 1 year as LLMs, and there was a lot of pressure, to get in there, talk to people, get them interested in you. And sometimes it was really quite stressful and made the networking very artificial. And of course, in many instances, nothing materializes. So what I found useful for me was just, in the course of studying, sometimes like I decided to reach out to some of my professors. I think you should definitely reach out to professors early on because they have wide networks and they take an interest in you. They'll be very happy to give you references, to connect you to people. Like one of the really most impactful experiences for me at NYU was a professor that I wasn't taking his course, but I was reading so many articles from my courses that he wrote. So I just shot him an email and I was like, really interested in your work. I'd like to meet. And he basically became my mentor. And my first publication at NYU was more or less because of him. So I think you need to like put yourself out there, put your authentic self out there. I mean, worst case scenario, you wouldn't get a response, but in many instances, I find that really, especially for young lawyers, they're very, very willing to do that. And for networking, I would say, elevator pitch, throw out the weather. There's this thing, talk about the weather. I found that it was usually very, very awkward. I don't know about all of you here, but each time I used that kind of trick or tip, I just went away feeling very awkward. So I decided to change my strategy and I started talking about really just ordinary things you think people will be interested in. So like I would just, randomly just ask what book the person is recently, reading or what the person's interest is. And that really gets you talking about the person at a more personal level and you're able to connect and relate. So I think you need to kind of like really find ways to connect to people that are out of the typical networking style, because it makes people free, and then they're kind of like you're able to open up the communication channels. So these are like 2 tips. In the course of this webinar, I'll be happy to share more, but thought to throw that out.
That's awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. I forgot to mention, we will have some time at the end for a live Q&A with the audience. So during the course of the entire webinar, feel free to drop in your questions in the chat. You can either send it to me directly or to Ali directly, or you can send it to everyone, whatever you choose. Ali, do you want to go next?
Sure. I think let's stay on this for a minute and explore it, because I really believe networking is key, and we started on this great conversation. So Elham, I'll ask you, one thing I've recently learned is what a great way to network is to be involved in organizations. As for you, as someone, you've been on American Immigration Lawyers Association for a while, AILA, Iranian American Bar Association for a while. How do you recommend being involved in organizations as a way to network, and what are some things you learned in that journey?
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. Thanks for bringing up Ali. And I had a mentor in Philadelphia who told me something, and I really appreciate it every other time I send her an email thanking her for that. She told me that for networking, go to events, let people know your face first, then volunteer so that they know your skills and capability, then ask for something. I think I agree with Michael and Elizabeth that somehow, depending on the person and their position, how they can help you figure out a way to open up a conversation, that's a good thing. And then depending on the situation, they need to know if you're capable of doing something first. Then you can ask something from them down the road in future. Becoming volunteer in this organization help you to show your skills and your capabilities and work ethic in another way to them. So you don't have to work for them to show them how you're capable. You can volunteer and show your work ethic and how fast you're responding to emails, how organized you are in organizing an event, or these type of stuff. I personally started from going to events, and then when they know my face, I will ask to be volunteer, and then after becoming volunteer, a few months down the road, I asked to be on the board member. So that helped me a lot in that term. But during the time that you're in law school, there are a lot of opportunity because you have affiliation of being a law student, and take advantage of those opportunity and places that you can go as a law student, because law school is providing that to you. When you lose that affiliation, there are places that you can't go, and you have either to pay for getting into those places or events, or you can. Yeah, like there is a way. You have to figure out a way to get into there, because you're still not passed the bar, you're not attorney, and you're not LLM students, you're not the students. With American Immigration Lawyer Association, we had this problem for people who finished law school and they're not attorney yet. So we have a problem for getting them, letting them into our events, and it's unfortunately, not having them. But the thing is that if I knew how to volunteer, how to present myself, to seek for a future opportunity during the time that I was in law school, I think I had better chance, even though I volunteered a lot. But like, networking here is very different from my home countries. And I didn't know when people say, go network and reach out to people. And I remember there was a conference that I was actually a part of the conference, prepared the toolkit, but I didn't know how to network. And I went to the speaker after the panel finished and said, hi, I'm Elham Sadri, I work on this toolkit. And do you have a job in your organization? And the person was like, what? But yeah, that's definitely not the way. But it was the way that what everyone's saying, go out and reach out to people, but they don't say how. And I think the conversation, like Elizabeth said, how to open up the conversation, and then asking about the organization that they are and how you can volunteer with their organization. That's the better way to offer them something, and then you can down the road get something.
Can I jump in on this question of organizations? I think that all of these organizations that have been mentioned, and there's local bar associations and wherever your school is, there's the American Bar Association, all of these are great. But I would also say, remember that you're more than just a lawyer. You came to law school probably with other interests beyond the law, and you can network as a tennis player or as an artist or a musician. Yeah. I literally have, and I say I have all these anecdotes, I have a student who was in our LLM program who joined a New York City craft beer meetup group because he really liked craft beer, and he met another lawyer there, and that ended up leading, you know, to connections that got him a job. You shouldn't all go out and join a craft beer group, but it is okay to find your network. And I actually think it's really productive to find your network, not just in lawyer circles, but in other professional circles. Maybe that is from, you know, your home region, like there's a Counsel on Latin America issues in New York City, or Asia Society, or maybe again, it's a hobby or something like that. And I think that that's something that people kind of lose track of. Like, you feel like I have to talk to lawyers, but bankers know lawyers, and, you know, artists know lawyers, and everybody else does too. So you can find a lot of opportunities there. And the other thing I wanted to say about kind of making the most of your time as an LLM, or what to do as a student, and I'm saying this from the career services perspective, is kind of two parts. One is use your career services office, talk to us, come back to us, bother us. Like, I always have students who say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm here again. You can come to my office every week, you know, if I can be helpful to you. And please do continue to use the career offices at your school, but also know that part of our role, very honestly, is sometimes managing expectations. And sometimes we are going to say, you know, this is going to be really difficult. There's going to be a lot of hurdles. There's going to be a lot of challenges. Don't give up when my office tells you that there's going to be hurdles or challenges. Be persistent. Understand that those hurdles may exist, but don't stop coming back and asking for help. If I'm telling you, or the person at Penn State or any other university is telling you this is going to be hard, they're not lying. It's going to be hard, but nobody said it's impossible. And right. There's a whole room full of people here, or Zoom full of people here, who will agree with you. It's absolutely not impossible. So, you know, don't listen to naysayers, even if that naysayer is an expert like me, and keep pushing and keep persevering.
Those are all great.
If I can jump in here, just following up on what Clara said, I think one thing that as law students or young lawyers tend to do is kind of being fixated on a certain aspect of law. Like, really, when you're a lawyer, you really have so many possibilities. So like you find a lot of law students, okay, I want to work in a law firm. That's all fine and good. but you don't have to build your career in a law firm. You can go in-house, you can work in the academia, you can work in banks, really, when you are a young lawyer, or when you're at an LLM, you're trying to figure out your career, be open to other possibilities, like in my case, I studied law because I wanted to go into litigation. And I did that for a bit before going for my LLM. And then I realized, during my LLM that there are other career paths, that within the legal profession that I could be very happy with. So I just, I bothered Clara and Lourdes a lot, and Barbara. I really work with the Career Services Office to also know what else I'm interested in. So I knew I wanted, as a lawyer, I wanted to go to court and blah, blah, blah. But when I was in law school back in Nigeria, I was really very much interested in politics. I was in student politics. I was also doing a lot of community development work, and I loved it. So when I had chats with people randomly advising me about my career, I had a tendency to go off in that direction, and I always got more excited about it. And two people that didn't know each other at all picked up on that, and they were like, you should try development finance. You're serving communities. You're gonna be practicing as a lawyer as well. And what do you know? So I decided to follow up on that. And how many years down the line here, I've been in that field, and I absolutely love it. So don't box yourself into, just one aspect of law. You may be surprised what other area of law you would fall in love with.
Thank you. Nyssa, I'm just going to summarize and add 2 quick points, and then I'll hand it over to you. I love these. These are so helpful. I'm in the chat. I'm entering the lessons as folks are saying it, so feel free to look at that, and feel free to add your own lessons so that we can all copy paste and have actionable items after. I love the ideas about networking. I'll add 2 that I found helpful too. One is organizing events. Like if you want to, why don't you organize an event about a certain aspect of law in your home country, in your law school? I met Clara because we organized this Zoom. I met Michael because we organized this Zoom. And I'm sure I'm going to meet a whole bunch of participants who will add me on LinkedIn, and we'll start talking. And like I'm expanding my own network by doing this webinar. So events. And then the other one is like a practical trick I use is every time I go to a webinar like this, I screenshot the Zoom page, and then I have a notepad and I write little facts about speakers. So Clara, I'll write like Bermuda, and Elizabeth, I'll write, OPEC, Vienna. And then afterwards, when I add them on LinkedIn, and this is tying back to networking is about giving first, not receiving first. I'll say something I like, Clara, your points were amazing. I like tropical places too, which is true. Like I go to Hawaii every year, boom, and you stop there. And that's the beginning of a relationship, and you engage them on a personal level, like Elizabeth said. So events and Zoom tricks. Nyssa, sorry, I jumped in.
No, all great points, thank you. The one thing I will add too for networking is professors, yes, career services, yes, bar associations, yes, but also your deans and your associate deans. They are there for you. They are there to help you. And it's actually in their best interest to help you. It helps their numbers at the end of the day. They're incentivized to do so. And so, to the extent that you can, I know it's super awkward from certain countries where it's not the norm to engage with, your senior, your professors or the administrators at the school. It is the norm here, and I would encourage you to sort of embrace that as well, because it really can be, I personally think actually deans at a school are probably one of the most underutilized resources, but they know pretty much everyone in the community. It's their job to know everyone in the community. So they are great connectors, and so use them to your advantage. So we can move on to the next question. I think this is all a great discussion. It sort of goes into many different topics all at once, but if you guys could all sort of share a little bit about how you kind of used your background kind of as your superpower, like when you were looking for jobs, and sort of, I guess also like share the challenges that came with it too, but really how it kind of, it was your way of marketing yourself to the firms and the companies that you were applying to. Who wants to go first? Elizabeth?
Yeah. So if I get you right, Nyssa, you want to know how we use our backgrounds as an advantage in projecting ourselves. So for me, that was okay. Two things. The first, my background really helped me in networking. If you know anything about Nigerians, is that we really love connecting with people. So although in the US it's really different, it's part of our way of life. So I just basically had to amplify that and just always put myself forward. So when you find yourself in a different setting, you don't have to kind of, you know, downplay or change you know, your background or what you knew before that, because it could be an asset. So hold on to that and just try to adapt it to the context that you find yourself. And then secondly, in terms of being in the development finance world, for instance, coming from a developing country and being a female, it's definitely an advantage. So this is something that you can look for opportunities, of course, mainstream, but also there are opportunities that are targeted to people that have your talent base or asset base or skill base or background, right? And then you can try and take advantage of that. But one thing I would qualify as saying is that, you know, when you're putting yourself out there or when you're applying for positions, just assume that you're competing against the strongest candidate. So like everybody else there is going to be qualified, just so try to tell a story. And for me, whenever I was writing cover letters, for instance, I try to personalize it, like something that is really personal to me, because the recruiters are gonna see everything else. Like, okay, if you look it up on Google or if you say the mainstream things, they won't really relate to it. You won't stand out. So try to tell a personal story. I mean, not sharing you know what I mean. Just a story that they can relate to, that they can see, okay, this person really has this certain richness, this beyond the skills and beyond the knowledge that they see on the CV. There's something else there that would probably put you an advantage over the other candidate who is probably even just as qualified as you. So that's what I would say.
Make that concrete. Like what did you share?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. So when I was applying for the IFD fellowship for the World Intellectual Property Organization, I started my cover letter by saying how I was, as a young kid, I was always really amazed. We stayed somewhere close to, I don't think it was close to a military base. So there are always all these planes flying around, and it was every day I would go out and wave at them. And just like growing up, I realized that this was really the product of someone's creativity. And that really made me interested in intellectual property. And I practiced that in the law firm when I was working in Nigeria. So I told them kind of the story, and I was applying to the World Intellectual Property Organization, you know, so telling them a story of how much I appreciated the fact that talent and creativity is something that should be protected, I think went a long way to securing me that that offer. So something like that, yeah.
I think I'm gonna jump into this and add. I like what you wrote, Addie, on the chat, that don't hide your background. I personally was, when I was in Iran, I published a couple of papers about immigration situation of women who married non-Iranian men. And we don't have that much of immigration problem in Iran, but that was one of the very few situations that raised up at the time and was a hot topic. And when I came here, I was like, okay, that's not a topic that I'm gonna help me a lot find a job. So let's go to civil litigation. Let's try something else. And I tried different path, but after 8 years now, I got back to helping women, mainly survivor of domestic violence, who are married to non-citizens. And that's exactly the topic that I was working there. But after 8 years of going around and trying to find something that professionally helped me get better job, I figured out I could adapt and adjust what's my personal interest in here in the US with a new situation that I am. I just have to look for a way to adapt it and be creative to how to use my interest. What's like after 8 years, I came back to the same topic that is so attracting to me, interesting. And I really love working with these people because it's just, I don't know why, but I like that. I like working with minority women who are like having this in this situation. And like Elizabeth said, just try to figure out your background and adapt it instead of changing it or hiding it, because there is something related to your skills that you are interested in that background probably. Maybe you have a good understanding of numbers, that you have a background in finance law or tax law, or I have a good skills to relate to these type of clients that I am working with. So that's helping me a lot, and staying in this field, this representing these type of clients, helping me because I can somehow understand them and help them better. So that's there is something in keeping that background, and you have to get to know yourself and how that background is helping you, and adapting, adjusting it with your new situation, figuring out how you can apply it here.
I would like to jump in here maybe, because I think it's an interesting question that you asked, Nyssa. So when I did my LLM, one of the things that surprised me the most, I would say, when I talked to JD students, is that for them, oftentimes the icebreaker question number one was, what is your background? And in the beginning, I didn't know what they meant, right? But it took me a while to understand that in the United States, if you do a JD, you already have been to college before, you already have studied something. And you know, I did an IP LLM, and so for most people, when I said, well, I don't know, what's your background? They said, well, you know, I study music or theology, or I'm a machine engineer. And I thought, okay, these people have so much, there's so much ahead. They want to be an IP lawyer, you know, they want to do patent law. And yes, of course, I mean, they understand everything because they had 3 years studying that. And I was kind of intimidated at first because I thought, okay, I basically come here, clean slate, I have nothing to offer, whereas these people, they're so specialized, you know, and so it made me think, like, what can I offer? You know, where am I different? And I think this is where we LLM students have a big advantage, because we do have something that most JD students, or let's say a majority of JD students, don't necessarily have, is we have lived in another country, we have studied in another country, most of us speak an additional language, and figure out how you can use that to your advantage. And again, you know, when you talk to people, you quickly figure out whether people are interested in you or not. So, you know, don't stay too much attached to you know, to make a connection with somebody you think may be valuable or who has a great connection to you. You will find people, the more people you talk to, the more you will realize that actually Americans, at least that's my experience that I have, they love talking to people from other countries. They love traveling. They are very interested. And they are oftentimes very impressed and amazed that, you know, that people from other countries come, maybe, you know, English is not their mother tongue, and they come and they just, you know, try it here. And, you know, that's this, you know, can do with this go-getter attitude that that really brings you far in the United States. And I would say that, you know, both for your personal connections and for your job, focus on what you don't be intimidated just because you're different, but use it to your advantage.
That's awesome. Thank you, Michael. Clara, when Michael was saying that he had doubts, he was like, what do I have to offer? I saw you shaking your head passionately. What did that spark in you?
It just, I hear this from LLM students all the time. Oh, I don't have a JD. I'm not, I don't have the same qualifications, or even, they told me they only hire JDs. And I just think that you came to another country to study law in a foreign language. Already, you are leagues ahead of the JDs, just based on that. And I think that you need to have some confidence in that. maybe you don't have a 3-year US degree. Absolutely. I can't deny that, but you have a lot of other things. And I think a lot of that is that perseverance, determination. Not everyone from your law school in your home country decided to get an LLM. So you're already setting yourself apart as somebody who is unique and who does have a more energetic attitude towards this, and channel what made you come here in the first place, and remind yourself of what made you come here in the first place. And I think that is what can help you propel yourself in the face of potentially a lot of rejections, potentially a lot of people saying this isn't going to work, or people saying, oh, we only need X language speakers, or we only need X specific practice area type of people. But you've always been different. That's why you're here. And so you want to keep that in mind, that you really are special. And I think so much stronger than the JDs who, and I love my JDs, but a lot of them follow the path, right? They do what they're told and they get their jobs, and that's pretty much it. You're way ahead of them from a lot of perspectives.
Thanks, Clara. That's absolutely a great point. So I think we can move into the Q&A. I think we've gotten quite a few questions here in the chat. Please continue to put them in there, even during this Q&A. But one of the questions that we got is, from your perspective, is there an option that sort of is easier and better for LLMs to pursue, whether it's in-house or solo practice or at a firm? Do you have any tips, tricks, or sort of insight into what is the best place for LLMs to start looking? Elham, I'll start with you. I think since you are the solo practice owner here, I think it'd be great to get your perspective on this.
Sure. One thing I can say for sure, don't do it. Don't do solo right after law school. It's not recommended, not only for JD, but also for LLM. But what I have no idea about in-house in the US after LLM, because to me it looked like impossible, or I don't have experience with that in any fields with in-house, so I didn't go that route, and I didn't know how to compete with those people for those type of job. In terms of looking for a job in small law firms, I would say getting to know the culture of law firm was very helpful to me, to navigate the culture and how to approach these firms, what to expect them, and how to find a job with them. I used to live in Philadelphia after I finished my LLM, and then I came to California. The experience that I had in Philadelphia was interesting. Like, I was looking for a job in Philadelphia, and almost all of those job postings were saying we're looking for immigration attorney, entry level, with at least 3 years of experience. And it wasn't just me. It was like I was talking to other JD students, and they were saying that we are looking for a job as entry level, and all of them are asking for at least 3 years of experience. How is that possible that I get 3 years of experience and look for entry job? So how do I get that 3 first? When I came to California, and I didn't find a job in Philadelphia, honestly, I moved for personal reasons to California, and then I found a job in San Francisco as attorney, not even paralegal, in San Francisco in 2 weeks. I don't know if it was the location or what, or because in Pennsylvania, LLM students were not allowed to sit for bar exam at the time that I was, and they were not very welcome to LLM. I experienced it a lot. I was there like maybe 5 years after my LLM, and I really felt that's a difference. And then when I came to California, they were more welcoming. And entry level means entry level, like with no experience, and they didn't expect you to have 3 years of experience. And that's one thing that I really felt was more different. And to me, starting with the small firms who, like in immigration, doing removal was easier than getting into employment base. I started from there. But one thing that helped me a lot in navigating firms culture in the US, honestly, it may look funny, but I watched almost most of those legal drama TV shows when I didn't have work authorization waiting for my green card, honestly, after LLM. I watched Suit, I watched The Housewife, I think, Drop the Diva, all of them. And it was like, maybe they were exaggerated in terms of how law firm looked like, but it helped me a lot to navigate work culture in the US, which was so different from my home country. And when I was in working in firm, I could really, it helped me a lot, honestly. But yeah, starting from small firm for immigration was better option, and in removal. That's what I can tell about immigration. I don't have experience with other fields. But one thing I'm gonna say, oh, this is very important. I wanted to mention. After I got my bar license, no one asked me about my transcript. No one asked me, what courses did you take in law school when I was looking for a job? So after you pass the bar exam, you're an attorney. No one cares what did you take in law school. Maybe if you're looking for IP or tax, maybe that's different. But with my field, never. And no one asked me about that. That's it.
I love that, Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing that. From personal experience, I think small and medium firms are highly overlooked. This summer, when a lot of law students were losing their internships because of COVID, we at the IABA did a job drive to connect students to law firms. And the biggest success we had was with these small and medium-sized firms, because they have a ton of work. It's like a solo person like yourself. Like you're running the business, you're running your cases, you're doing your social media, so much work. You don't have the time to do it. So it was I realized it was a sweet spot. So thank you for mentioning that. Clara, yeah, please. I was going to pass it and ask if you see openings like that you would like to share.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right that small firms are overlooked, and there's lots of opportunities at small firms, especially if the firms, you know, have immigration, or maybe there are actually a lot of small firms that have international work. And so you really can be that international person. I do want to put the caveat that visa restrictions can be very scary to small firms, and can turn small firms off from wanting to hire students for longer than, for example, the OPT time. And I think, you know, in my time, in my 15 years, I've had students who have successfully convinced a small firm to sponsor, and I've also had students who've lost offers because of the sponsorship. And unfortunately, none of us can change US immigration policy. If we could, we would. But I think that the best thing for you to do if you're approaching small firms who may not be aware of the options is for you to know for yourself. What are your options? Be armed with information. What are your options? What would be expected of the firm? What's your role in that situation? How could you potentially provide the firm with additional information to make this as easy as possible for them? And maybe talk to Elham, because she's an immigration lawyer, about how to approach that. And I mean, we've actually bring in immigration lawyers to talk to our students, not just about the specific kind of nitty gritty, like this visa, that visa, but even how to talk about it in an employment context. And so I think that's something you want to think about. And then in terms of kind of in-house versus big firm versus small firm, I think I'm going to echo really what Elizabeth said a little bit earlier, which is really be open to opportunities. If you come in thinking, I have to work in a big law firm because that equals success for me, then you may be shutting out an unexpected opportunity in a small firm or in-house. And so opportunities come from all kinds of places. And you know, even if your dream is to work at the big law firm, at a global firm, you may get there the third step along the way. You may start in a smaller position. You may start in a position that you didn't expect, or even in a kind of a law adjacent position like compliance. and still be able to make your way there. So don't shut any doors. And I think that's, you know, it's kind of sometimes hard. Lawyers think I only have this one path, but be open to what comes along outside of what you might think of your normal path. And there again, I'm going to put in a plug for career offices, but if you have an opportunity and you think, I don't think this is a good idea, or I don't know what this means for my career, that's what your law school's career office is trained for, is to talk that through with you and to help you figure out how to make the most of those opportunities.
If I may jump in here, I'm going to add to a couple of points to what Clara and Elham said earlier on. So to Elham's point about, you know, it was so real for us when we were applying for positions. Then you're applying to entry-level positions, and you're expected to have experience, but you don't have experience because, you know, you need to get the job first. And I think that what I found as I tried to figure that landscape out was that, you know, really job experience is relative, right? So you're entry-level lawyer, nobody's expecting you to have practiced law already, unless as LLM, you already practice in your country. So for me, for instance, I was working, I worked when I was in university. So I worked with an NGO that was a student-run NGO, and we were into human rights and governance issues. And I had a solid 2 years there. So for me, that was work experience. You know, it was something that exposed me to what the labor market was. I got a chance to work with international NGOs as well. So that went into my resume, and it was like, it's not law per se. I was not qualified as a lawyer yet, but I was working. And that is something that I'm sure that some of the offers that the employers that offered me positions saw there. So really don't hesitate. If you've worked before, it doesn't really have to be as a lawyer. If you've worked as a lawyer, that's fine and good. But if you've done other work, you know, don't discount that. It also goes to show how dynamic you are and how versatile you are. And we all know that's very important that's a very important attribute for lawyers. So that's about that. And building on Clara's point about, you know, right, don't box in yourself. A lot of my contemporaries during the LLM were really fixated on having securing jobs in the US. I was one of them as well. So I wanted to remain in the US. I wanted to have the international experience first. But you know, there's really, the legal profession goes well beyond the shores of the US. And a lot of these, even the big law firms especially, they have offices in other countries. And sometimes, like for some of my friends that really wanted to work in big law firms, it was easier to get into those law firms through the country, the other offices in maybe Singapore or London or, you know, Switzerland or wherever, than to get into the US and the firms in the US. And then some of them from there had the opportunity to come into the US because they already had the big law there. So try to transcend that boundary, right? You're starting your career, and it's good to note that in the US, you know, they're very strict. Immigration is very strict. The requirements are very strict. Some countries also it's strict, but there are many countries that, you know, if you get a job, you wouldn't really have problems with getting a visa, and Europe is one of it. So try to also transcend that, you know, that the boundary of the US, and look at what is out there, because there very well may be opportunities that will lead you to the path that you want to be on.
That's an excellent point. Thank you, Elizabeth. Michael, I know you've had quite a few different experiences right after law school that were specifically in-house. So I'd love to hear your insight too into how you sort of chose those experiences, and if you have recommendations for whether in-house firms or, you know, solo practice would be the best way to go.
Happy to talk a bit about that. So first of all, I would say my biggest advice is be patient. You know, probably even if you have big dreams, big goals, you don't have to have that big job at the very first opportunity. You know, I think it's important to move steadily, move slowly, and really just, use opportunities that are granted to you. So in my case, as Nyssa mentioned, it was straight path at all. The very first job I had after I passed the bar, and that's what I learned, you know, nobody has been waiting for me, of course, but I was there and I really was sitting there and I didn't know what to do next. And I was trying to reach out to all my contacts, and then suddenly I had the chance to work at the University of Washington to do some trademark prosecution. It was an unpaid opportunity. And at first it struck me as odd, you know, and it's an unpaid opportunity, it's there, and it felt like, is this really what I want to do? But it was so helpful because later on, the fact that I was doing something, even if it was a part-time job, it gave me exposure. I could talk to people, I could learn on the job, and I could use the rest of the time, you know, doing other things, do some networking. Then after a few months, I moved again. There was another unpaid position at the Seattle Symphony. So I worked at for the general counsel at the Seattle Symphony, which was super interesting. It was a typical in-house job with all kinds of questions that came towards us. It was also unpaid again, and I started to think, you know, that I need to make some money at one point. But at that time, I had really a great person that was guiding me. So the general counsel that was working with me was a fantastic person, and he told me something very important. I would say that when I asked him whether it's a paid internship, he told me, it depends what you mean with paid. You think you're going to get money? No, you're not going to get any money. But you're going to get a lot of experience and a lot of exposure. And that's going to be more valuable for you in the next few months, probably. And he was absolutely right. So after that, I got my third job, which finally was a paid opportunity. And so I did these, you know, slow and steady moves. And I just, I was so happy when that really worked out at the end. And, you know, at the very beginning, I didn't see where my journey would end. But what Clara said before, you know, just use those opportunities. And also what Elizabeth said, I think is really important. You know, work experience, it is relative. And especially when you have studied in your home country and you're already a lawyer, what we really learn at law school is really to have analytical thinking skills. You know, we learn how to think like a lawyer. And what you learn quickly is that these skills are the same everywhere. You know, law is principally, of course, you know, the statutes are different, you know, the rulings are different, but the concept, how we apply law to cases and to facts and circumstances are very similar everywhere. So my advice to you, if you have the opportunity, try to work a bit at home before you do an LLM. I know a lot of people do an LLM right after they finish their studies at home. I think in my case, at least, I was very glad that I had some work experience as a lawyer in Switzerland, because when I had my first opportunity, not that it didn't necessarily help me much getting a job, but when I had my first assignments, people were impressed because they said very quickly, that's not the level that they're used from a law school graduate, but you can see that you already have some experience. This really, it helps you move quicker once you actually have a job.
Thank you, Michael. That's awesome. What a great session. So I was taking notes, as you saw. So let's round up everything we learned so that we leave today with some actionable items. And then I will ask all of the panelists to say a parting sentence. So you can think about what your parting sentence is as I go through what we learned today. Number one was networking, and some really good strategies was volunteering. So Michael even worked at a company without pay. So volunteering, organizing events, talking about seeking your interests, tennis. Clara said talk about food. New Yorkers love food. And then webinars and events like this, adding the speakers on Zoom, adding other people you meet, on LinkedIn, and keeping in touch with them. So networking. Two was ask for help. So Clara said careers office, they're there to help you. It's an underutilized resource. I see in the attendees, we have Irene Dorsbach, who's head of career offices at NYU. Super helpful to me. She was my mentor, my kind of motherly figure for me when I was going through my challenges. So I love that. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Clara. Asking others for help. Most people are willing to help. We're all volunteering our time for this Zoom. We like this stuff. We're nerds about this. So reach out to all of us, add all of us today. Dean's offices, Nyssa mentioned that as additional resource. Okay, 3, be open to opportunities was a big theme. So, you know, I love Michael's final point about payment is not just money. I think that's beautiful. I have a saying, success is not an success is an outcome, not a goal. So once you seek your opportunities, you with a good attitude, you'll become successful. It's not like you have a successful point that you aim at. And then broaden your lens. You only see what you're looking at. You only see the events you're following. You only see the friends you have. So broaden your lens. And then finally, last big topic was using your background as your secret weapon. And I love the point about work experience. I always wondered why LLMs don't tout their work experiences more, because whenever I'm hiring, like the first thing I want to know is, did this person work a real job? Because if they did, they're much like, that takes so much off my plate in terms of training and onboarding. So really your work experience, if you have some, is amazing. And then don't compare yourself to others, but ask, what can I do, or what can I bring to the table? And Elizabeth shared some of her stories. So thank you for those buckets of lessons. So let's go in the order we started. So Elham, Michael, Elizabeth, Clara, final parting sentence for everyone. You're on mute, yeah.
Yeah, I think don't be afraid and from anything. Just go to any events that you think, even though if you have no idea about it, you'll figure out something. That's, I think, what I can say.
Yeah, so a lot of things to say, but I would say very important, be confident and, you know, make yourself heard. You know, people don't see your interior genius unless you speak out and you speak up and you talk to people. So don't be shy. You know, you may make mistakes, but it's fine. You know, people need to hear you and people need to see you.
I would say that something that's also very important is making friends. And this is really something that is going to take you into, like, way into your life, right? And when you find yourself on the LLM landscape, you have people from like any number of countries, right? So use that, just build a network within that circle as well, because 5, 10 years, 20 years down the line, you'll find that it's helpful, whether it's in getting new jobs or transitioning into other ones. So don't forget to make friends. It's very important.
So I have the last word, I guess. I think that persistence is my last word, is keep going. Don't give up, and because there's a lot out there and you will be successful. And I'm sitting here in Queens, New York. I'm a Mets fan, and the Mets, and that's another tip, follow some US sports team, because Americans all want to talk about their sports. But the Mets logo is, or slogan is, you gotta believe. And I think that applies to you guys too. You got to believe in yourself, and you will probably do better than the Mets ever do if you believe in yourself.
Thank you. Nyssa, our fearless leader, your final word.
My final word is, please feel free to add everybody on LinkedIn, but please write a note so we know who you are and that you were joining this webinar. Somebody did ask if they could have the email of our panelists. I would say the best way to get in touch is through LinkedIn and just developing a connection that way. So thank you everyone for joining, especially thank you to our panelists. This was excellent. I'm not an LLM student, but I still learned a great ton from all of you. So thank you for taking the time today. Ali, I'm gonna let you actually have the last word. Do you have any last parting thought?
Love you all, and best wishes. We're here to help. Thank you and have a great day.
Take care.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, guys.